you ever noticed that the moment you decide to actually grow, to focus on yourself, to do things differently, to change your habits, maybe to change your lifestyle, that's when you start feeling very lonely. Everyone speaks about how good it is for you to focus on yourself, but no one speaks about how lonely all of this can be. And in this video, we're going to talk about how lonely this path can be and why it is so lonely, because I think people don't understand enough. And sometimes this is a path that you're going to have to walk by yourself. So if this is a topic that really interests you, then let's begin. The first thing I want to address is how your priorities normally change. The reason why I say your priorities, I could also put here your lifestyle, is because every time you have an intention of growing, you have an intention to do new things. You have an intention to completely change your life. So your mindset is not like, I'm going to wake up today and do exactly everything I was doing before. Your mindset now is, I'm going to wake up today and do 1, 2, 3, 4 things new. And you start aligning, you start changing things to actually become a more self-aware version of you. You start to not just do things because others are doing, but you start doing things that really and truly reflect who you are. And because of that, straight away you're going to find conflict. Nowadays, everyone follows what other people are doing. If you have friends that normally party, then that's where you go. If you have friends that they like spending money, then that's where you go. Depending on who your surroundings are, people tend to normally just follow. And when you are someone that wants to grow, you actually stop doing that because you want to be more aligned to who you are. So straight away, automatically, your priorities are going to very much change because now you are focusing on who you want to become and not what everyone else is doing it, so then you can just follow. You become a little bit more intentional about what you decide to do, what you decide to see, what you decide to be. Now, the reason why changing your priorities is actually quite hard is because the people around you, they are not used to that. The people that you allowed yourself to connect with, your friends, your closest friends, they possibly are not in the same mindset as you, and they don't want the same things as you. They are still very much comfortable to the old version of you. They are comfortable with the old version that used to say yes to everything. When you start saying no, there's a conflict there. Sometimes your friends might actually not fully understand why you're doing things new now, and that is where the whole problem begins. Some will say that you don't want to be with them anymore. Others will say that you are fake. You will also start seeing that the stuff that used to excite you before, it doesn't excite you anymore. The conversations that you used to have, they are not the conversations that you are in line to now. All the habits and your daily life that used to drain you, that's not what you want to do anymore. And again, this is something that 100% is going to cause conflict to people that don't want you to be the best version of yourself. And sometimes when you have different priorities, your whole day will change in a way that you will start discrediting the other things that are not going to amount so much in your day. You start changing your routines. You start changing the stuff that you once used to do. If you were a person that liked noise all the time, you will realize that now you're very much in the quiet and you start enjoying the quiet moments. This sometimes will also bring some kind of conflict because people nowadays just like to be very noisy. One thing I will say about changing your priorities is that you have to get ready for people around you not really understanding what you are becoming, neither agreeing with who you are becoming now, because that's going to challenge them. When you try to do something different, that just shows to the other person that if they are not doing anything, is truly because they don't want to, because if they wanted to, then they would. And sometimes when you find friends that out of a sudden start, speaking bad about you, start criticizing you, wanting to change, challenging why you're changing out of a sudden and why you now want to become the best version of yourself, because for some reason it's like you can't. You just need to know that the reason for all of this is because you are challenging their reality of they don't want to change, you wanting to change, and that is confronting them. So sometimes it's not about you. What you bring into the table is something new, and they are very uncomfortable with that. And this ties into the second thing, which is people are most likely likely tied to the old version of you. So the old version of you, it was most likely someone without ambitions, without goals, without education, or without knowledge. And because of that, people saw you as someone very small. When you actually want to change that and actually become the best version of yourself, that will annoy many of them, because in reality they just want a person that can say yes to everything, that can be people pleasing. They were comfortable with the version of you that never spoke, constantly doubting yourself, the version of you that needed validation for you to feel some type of worth, especially when you tolerated a behavior that you should never tolerate. The moment you become more confident, more self-aware, more disciplined, and more independent, now that's a whole problem. Now this is you being fake, now this is you being different, now there's something wrong with you. They'll start coming to you to say, oh, you're so different now. And you will start to realize that slowly, people will start distancing themselves from you. This has nothing to do with you. And what will truly hurt is that you will start to realize that people don't really want to grow with you. You will start to realize that people just want to walk with you when they are equals to you. So if you are low, they are also low, so they are okay walking with you. If they lack confidence and you also lack confidence, then they are okay walking with you. If your life is in a mess and their life is in a mess, then it's okay for you to walk together. But the moment that someone is very confident and the other is very doubtful, you guys no longer can work together because there's a problem. And sometimes it's not you that actually does that, but it's them. They do that to you. The moment that you start healing, that you want to become the best version of yourself, that you are more disciplined, more confident, they start feeling uncomfortable. And not because you did anything wrong, but it's because it just shows to them that they are stagnant when you are moving on. And I just really wanted to let you know that if this is happening with you right now, you do not own an apology to anyone, okay? If something is wrong and you really want to grow, you are allowed to evolve, you are allowed to set boundaries, you are allowed to outgrow your behaviors, and the right people and the right friends, they will not punish you just because you now want to become the best version of yourself. Now, this is a big one. The third one is when you stop following the crowd, people will start turning on you. This is something that I really wanted to talk about in this video because I feel that it doesn't have enough attention as it should. We live in a world that is very easy for you to become a follow. And this is seen very much in trends. Every time that there's a new trend, you see everyone hopping on it. Every time that there's a new collection, you see everyone wearing it. And I really feel that people like to do that because they like to feel included. From the moment that you start following what everyone is doing, the chances are that you're going to understand what the people are talking about. You're going to look like them. You're going to feel like you are part of the crowd. And the moment people do that, they really feel comfortable, because if you're doing what everyone is doing, you are not standing out, because the moment that you do something different, that's when you stand out. And some people are not very comfortable to do that. It's harder for you to be the different one. And sometimes to follow the crowd is also good because people are not going to ask you questions, people are not going to confront you, you are going to become more relatable. But again, the moment that you decide I don't want to follow the crowd anymore and you start doing things differently, that's when you start facing all these questions, all this pressure, and you start feeling that people will be very uncomfortable with your decision to just not follow the crowd. And what people don't really understand is that when people are uncomfortable, they start asking questions sometimes, but most of the times they start judging. And if you don't know how to deal with judgment, then this is going to be very difficult for you. And this might be a very lonely season as well, because let's take it into perspective. If you are someone that was following the crowd and now you decide to do everything different, you are not really ready for the judgment that's coming to you. And that for you can feel very lonely. People will start joking about your discipline, about your goals, about what you want in life, and they will start acting like your personal development is a personal attack to them, when it's not. If you are facing this situation, I just want to tell you that it's not that people dislike you, but they actually dislike what you are representing. When you start choosing things different, you make others to question themselves. You make others to think, should I be choosing something different too? Because you are putting another perspective into the table, and that most likely will reflect back to them. Do not try to make yourself small to not make other people uncomfortable, and don't try to continue the same just to make others happy. If they feel uncomfortable, let them feel uncomfortable until eventually they get used to it, because you have a duty here, which is to become the best version of yourself. And if this is going to make make anyone's uncomfortable, then guess what? They're going to be uncomfortable. Another reason why it feels very lonely when you start to grow is that you're going to be in the between. You are now a person that wants to change or are changing, and you don't really much relate to your old self anymore or your old environment. However, your life most likely still looks the same. You want to go to a new place, but you are in your old place, and that can be very confusing, and you can be feeling very much in between. It's like internally you are changing, but externally everything is exactly the same, and sometimes that can be very conflicting. So again, you don't really engage on the same conversations, you maybe don't go out as much. When your friends invite you, you now learn to say no, and you don't actually engage in every outing, and yet sometimes it might feel very off. And sometimes because you can't really realize that shift, you start thinking that something is wrong with you. But I like to say that you shouldn't feel lost if you are in this stage, neither lonely. It's just that you're transitioning from whoever you were before to now a new person, and with that comes a few changes. Every time you want to grow, there's always going to be, I used to do that and now I do this. I used to be like that, but now I am like this. And you have to be comfortable to be in that transitional phase that sometimes is not going to be very straight, is going to have their ups and downs, that sometimes you actually have to feel very disconnected from your old environment for you to actually have space for you to grow. Out of a sudden, that specific place used to mean a lot to you, and out of a sudden you go there and it means completely nothing. But that is because you are transitioning and you are growing, and you have to get used to that, because the feeling, your emotional feelings are not going to be the same, especially if you are trying to become a new person. And yes, you might say, but Claudia, it feels very uncomfortable, and 100% is going to be. But I always say, imagine you are trying to actually be a new person, but you have your old self pushing you back. It's not going to work. Sometimes you actually have to sit down and understand that maybe at that time, at that age, at that specific moment, I was like this, I enjoyed that, but now at this age and who I am becoming today, I no longer enjoy or want to participate in those things, and that is completely fine. You shouldn't feel that there's something wrong with you, because there's not. But this is something that sometimes it will make you feel lonely, disconnected with yourself, because it's like you are in two completely extremes. Another thing that can make you feel very lonely is your healing. Every time you want to grow, everyone normally says you have to really look within. That is one of the main things growth requires from you, is for you to look within, for you to know yourself better, and you will start to understand that when you actually do that, you will start to realize a lot of things about yourself that you did not realize before. When you start to do that inner work, when you start to be mentally stronger, you start seeing things completely different as to when you saw before. And as you're doing this inner work, you will start to understand people much better, because I really agree with this. When you understand yourself, you understand the world, because most of the things that you are feeling, that you are experiencing, other people are experiencing too. And sometimes it's amazing when you can see that in front of your eyes and you know exactly what they were feeling, because you also felt that. And sometimes when they're having conversations with you, they're not going to tell you blank straight that, look, I'm feeling like this and I'm feeling like that, but in between the lines you're going to understand what they are talking about, because you yourself experienced that. This happens with fake friendships. You'll start seeing very easily if someone is being fake to you. You'll be able to also see one-sided relationships straight away. And again, because you start to understand people better, because now you understand yourself better, people might look at you and think that you actually changed towards them, when in reality it's not that you changed, and it's not that you abandoned them. It's just that you now have a different vision and you now understand them better. You now stop pretending everything is fine and okay, because now you can clearly see what they're trying to say, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to influence you, and that normally sometimes creates distance, because now you understand and you just move on. You don't feel the need to over explain yourself, and of course all of that can feel very lonely. And with this, there's not much to say. It's just that as you evolve and as you're growing, you get more clarity, and with clarity there's better decisions. And sometimes the decisions that you're doing now is actually to protect your own peace. So you shouldn't feel any type of way if this is happening to you, but just be aware that yes, it's going to feel a little bit lonely. With all of this, there tends to be one thing that people normally fall back into, and that is their old self. When you start going through these phases and when you start seeing how lonely this growth journey can actually be, there's some people that they actually withdraw back to be their old selves. Not because they were happy or not because their old selves is what they want to be, but it's because they can't really tolerate the loneliness that they are feeling while they are trying to grow. You go back to your old friends even though you know it was one side. You start missing old situations even though you know very well that those situations were very toxic. And you start missing who you used to be even though you know that who you used to be, you were very unhappy. And all of this is not because you think that these things were good, but it's just because it felt very familiar to you. And sometimes what is familiar to you is what it's safe, even when sometimes it can be very harmful. That's why some people, they go backwards. They go back to the environments that they were before. They shrink themselves to be smaller. They start connecting again with the people that were draining them, just really to escape unfamiliarity and discomfort. But I need to tell you that temporary loneliness, it's better than you permanently betraying yourself. You shouldn't be trading your process with comfortability, and you should never go back to what is easy. So if you are in this situation, then push yourself, because in days, months, maybe years from now, you're going to be in such better position and you're not going to regret the choices that you did today. Now, with all of this, is not just the bad, it also has some goods, and the main thing is that you actually start learning how to be with yourself. And there's no better thing than for you to learn how to be with yourself. You don't start tolerating being alone. You don't start being in survival mode trying to be alone. No, you actually start enjoying being by yourself. And there's something great with that, because when you are with yourself, that's when you actually discover things about yourself. It's very hard for you to know who you are when you are overcrowded with people. You do need to have moments by yourself for you to actually figure out what you like, what you don't like. And sometimes we think that we know these things. We think that we know our favorite colors, we know what we like, we know the type of clothes that we like, we know what we like to eat. But in reality, we don't know. Especially if you were a follower and you just start following everyone, you don't really know the stuff that you like, what you like to do. This is things that you actually discover when you spend time with yourself, because then you are able to evaluate without anyone's judgment what you like and what you don't like. You start building routines that actually serves you. You start working towards your goals and actually motivating yourself to do that. You don't expect anyone to come out of nowhere to motivate you. You start motivating yourself. And it's also very good when you start doing that, when you don't have people to motivate you and you just do it for yourself, because you have been with yourself so much that you know how to talk yourself out certain situations and how to talk yourself out of laziness and not wanting to do something that literally, that's amazing. You start not depending on other people, because sometimes when you are dependent on other people, that's where all these bad environment, that's where this small talk starts to creep into you. And I'm not saying this for you to go to the extreme, but please know the difference between being alone and being lonely. And I also want to tell you that with time, you'll find your people. You'll find people that have the same vision as you, that also want to grow, doing the inner work. And it's amazing when you finally find those friends, because then you are able to relate to them and you start growing much more than you were growing before. So yes, this is something that sometimes comes with time, but as you are focusing on yourself and becoming the best version that you can possibly be, along the way you'll find people that are exactly on the same path. So if growth has been feeling lonely lately, I do hope this video made you feel a little bit less lonely. And I truly just want to remind you that you're not failing because your circle now is very small. You are not weird because your mindset now has changed. You are not wrong because certain environments no longer aligns with you or with who you want to become. It's completely okay for you to grow and change, not grow and stay the same. And sometimes becoming the best version of yourself requires from you to distance yourself from anyone or anything that does not want to grow with you. And with this video, I really hope you understand that loneliness during growth is not always a punishment. That loneliness sometimes is not there to destroy you, but was actually there to introduce you to yourself. And that alone changes everything. If you watch all the way to the end, first of all, I love you for that. Drop a comment and let me know one thing that you have outgrown. And if this video has helped you in any way, shape or form, then don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next video.